One.
Yeah. What's up?
So
Is it summer yet?
no, Monkey's got to take it easy right now, right? It's like this is Dragon Year, so Monkey's got it, but this is Tiger Moon, so
Yeah, you gotta be careful, man. You
take
gotta
it
be careful.
easy.
Yeah, it's good to play. But monkeys gotta they're not always fresh in how they play, so they need to be careful.
Word. Well, Shannon, Happy New Year. First, I've seen you since the
I
New Year,
know, yeah.
and you came bearing a hell of a gift. Can I cordially, publicly thank my big brother Shannon here? We have this thing where we follow kettlebells.
Yeah, we like
Okay.
offer up.
And maybe for like the last 6 months or so, we'll find these kettlebells online. It's like, hey, what about these? Hey, well, what about these? And nothing's ever come of it. But I sent him some kettlebells recently, and he showed up today with kettlebell. I'm blown away.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I mean, you've had a pretty crazy mission. And like crazy missions are kind of interesting. So you had this crazy mission of having like 100-pound kettlebells. Well, just one, as far as I knew. You just want to
I just wanted one.
you just want a single 100-pound kettlebell. And I thought he was nuts, but like he is a giant. So I was like, whatever, giants giants are gonna do what they're gonna do. And then there hasn't been like the one that I was looking at, we were both looking at was like all the way down in Santa Cruz. I'm like, I'm not going to.
And was 300 for one.
Well, that was the guy in Hayward. The one in Santa Cruz is like only $100, but you got to go to Santa Cruz. And I was like, yeah, that ain't gonna work. And like, I was trying to find it for New Year's Eve. I was trying to find it for New Year's, and then I was like, well, he's just gonna tell me when he sees them, so I'll just wait. And then there was like a pair. There's like a pair of them. It was actually pretty sweet.
That's unreal. 100-pound kettlebell one. A pair
of
100-pound
kettlebells. That's something else. Plus, I mean, this is a geek out moment, and like I'll do this. They're by RussianKettlebell.com. Like,
Yeah.
so they're kind of antiques, in some way. Like if you know kettlebells,
KC, yeah.
RKC is what's
Shout
up.
out Pavel.
So when Matt comes through, he's gonna be like, oh, he's gonna notice.
Yeah.
He's gonna notice. So,
Well,
but you're welcome. Happy New Year.
Hey.
Like my gift to you and to the school. And it's my honor. Yeah.
Talk about a red envelope.
Right. That was the idea. Like you gave me this really cool, like I felt so weird because like I was like trying to find these kettlebells like for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
I was like, New Year's would be so cool. And then I come here and he gives me a really cool gift for New Year's right before the talk. And I was like, here's an orange. I couldn't think of I don't I don't have the thing I want to bring, but here's something.
Oh, well,
Here's a stand-in.
Since you're talking about it, tell the people about the gift I gave you, because I gave you a really nice one.
You did, and you would actually be better at that than me. Yeah, it's a really cool pot, teapot.
It is a Cinnabar.
See?
Red Cinnabar clay.
Yeah.
Because the red is, the red clay, it's a parallel to the vessel of heart, right? And for as long as you and I have been buddies,
yeah.
you've always talked about these three-legged ritual
the ding.
things,
Yeah.
right? And so I found this teapot with like these little short
Little
little
ding.
piggy legs,
Yeah.
and there's three, and then you're my pig, and then so.
Yeah. So now I just got to pick the tea that I'm going to brew it. Like because you choose that tea and you're done.
Yeah.
That's the tea you drink. So I have yet to do that. So
okay,
we'll see.
Well, speaking of tea, wonderful segue. This month's tea club, we have 2 varieties. Now I'm really excited about this because our tea club team, this is close to $100 worth of tea, believe it or not. This red tea comes from like 600-year-old trees, and the entire process is done in the sun.
Like
They
the
dry
dry-
it, they roast it, they roll it. It's light oxidation, mild fermentation, the entire process
Wow.
with the sun. And so small batch, very, very, artisanal blend, and just this little 100-gram cake is, so we're gonna have this tonight. And then the other one that's,
So good.
yeah, this one's nice too. It's a shung tea, it's a raw pu'er, but it has the sticky rice, the glutinous rice aroma.
Okay.
So this one's a really nice breakfast tea. It has that good chi for the morning. And then this is kind of like a really nice after dinner digestive. So we'll start with the rice aroma first.
Tea for breakfast.
Yeah. So here we are, first
Just the first
astrology
couple
of the
weeks.
year.
Yeah, just a couple weeks in, like, everybody figure it out yet?
And I gotta say, it really feels like the essence of the tiger, because what I get of the tiger is bang, pow, and then finished quick, right?
Right.
And so here you get this 2-week New Year party, bang,
Intense.
pow.
Yeah, very intense.
And then Red Lantern, and then tiger's already
and that's
halfway
it.
gone.
Yeah, it's like, and it's halfway done. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I
wild.
really feel like the no stamina, the
Right.
quick,
Right.
powerful.
Right.
It feels like tiger.
Yeah, that's apropos. It's I will resist the idea, like at the talk, one of the first things I said is that, like, I think it's important not to pontificate, when talking about what's available in a wood dragon year, or just in general, like that expertise is really not that important. To understand what's available in the year. And so I don't want to start now, right? I think that what I can talk about most freely is like my own experience, when it comes to navigating these first 2.5 weeks of the tiger moon, and then to talk about like what's potentially, what's available going forward, like into the second moon. And because this is a very personal path for me. It's not really like intellectual. I mean, although I fall into intellect pretty easily, it's just a daily practice of daily writings and all that. And there was a lot of that kind of like really, fast and furious, overwhelming, because I decided in my infinite wisdom to start seeing a bunch of clients right away, So all of those things went remarkably well, but I was whooped. Like I was just exhausted, and the more that I kind of kept pressing, the less I had. And I experienced that exhaustion, or aggression pushes exhaustion aggression pushes freshness into exhaustion. Like I couldn't like think straight. I would drop things. Like I thought there's a couple times there I was like, is there something wrong? Do I have a neurological disease? I feel like I'm just clumsy, like, easily triggered, prone to aggression, anger comes so easy. Like even on the drive here, I was like, oh man, I need to breathe, regulate, and it's all liver chi.
Spring.
It's spring. It's everything's getting stirred up, and when you have no idea how to frame it or conceptualize it, and that's not really available. It's not really available to understand what's happening. You're just kind of working through it and doing your best to be present and self-regulate with the situation, right? So I absolutely felt that, and like much of that from my experience was due to the fact that like I just did too much.
Smell like rice?
Yeah, it smells like breakfast. Yeah.
So one of these days, we are constantly investing in new
content.
camera, new mic, new lights. Next investment, smell-o-vision. But then
You'd be breaking hearts then.
well, and that might suck because we'll have to invest in like a smell thing, but then the customer will have to invest in a smell emitter.
Or they could just come down and like have a seat at the table. Just saying.
always an option.
Just saying.
Bet. Okay, so that was the rinse.
Yeah. So for me, it's slow down. That was the. Oh. Okay. Like go ahead, cut it off. Stop, and just retreat, relax. Which is really available in the first moon, and we forget.
Yeah.
We forget that it's available, because one of the reasons why we forget this particular year is because, well, number one, everybody has a very aggressive understanding what dragon is. They're like, time to manifest right away, like get into it, and that's not because in the West, our notion of dragon is the commanding. I command nature. That's what we do here, and the origin of that figure is a partnership, is a relatedness aspect with nature, with heaven and earth, right? So there is manifestation, but it's from the standpoint of that being is self-arising and that doing is self-resolving, right? So like those aspects of the cosmology come immediately into play when you're talking about a dragon. What would it be like for everybody to hear and actually internalize that there's no wrong, there's nothing to fix? Ooh, can we get there in the first moon? I don't know. That might be a little much.
You mean that we're supposed to have colonialism and patriarchy?
My yes, no, maybe. But I don't know. Don't ask me. Ask that person. I'm not the person to listen to on that.
Oh my goodness. Well,
I'm the person to listen.
How about this? Let's enjoy this first cup of tea. Because the gist that I'm getting is with this quality, right? You just talked about how you got all this energy and you overbooked, and now you had this kind of feeling of exhaustion.
I had an idea of energy. No, I had an idea of energy. Yeah, sure, it's like short bursts.
Yeah.
But it's mostly an idea of the energy that I was going to have, and that's actually the first. That's the first chi node, right? The first chi node of the 24 chi nodes in the calendar are an idea of energy, but actually no energy. It's just that hey, you know what would be good? It's that moment.
So this is God, like thinking to himself, like, some light would be nice.
Sure.
So just before even the vocalization of "Let there be light,"
yeah,
it's like, it's a little dark in here.
Well, it's the it's the moment where it's mostly the moment where old yin can see the future of their decline, and then there's just a little bit of space for wind, to move across a frozen wasteland still. What appears to be a frozen wasteland, but there's like an inkling, that yang will return. So that's the beginning of spring. Now this is very different than how we conceive of spring, because especially in what Ming would call the two climate areas of the world, like us, like we have two climates, it's either cold or hot. And we don't get all the different kind of permutations that come with like more complex places. But we tend to lump spring and summer into one thing.
Yes.
Right. And that is fatal flaw. It's a fatal flaw from the Chinese calendar to do that. Because spring itself is a promise. It's not a platform for fulfillment. It's just the promise. Right? And then as it transitions to summer, from the Tongshu's perspective, as it transitions to summer, then you have this review of your inspirations, because you're going into the place where fulfillment, the energy for fulfillment is available. So you want to basically hang back during most of spring to be sure. You want to make it so obvious, like you hold back until you can't not do it, right? That's Wu Wei. Then Tao is on your side. When you say, nah, that's why reluctance is is where it's at. No, no, no. And then somebody picks you up in a black car and they're like, okay, I'll go. You know, like it's that kind of it's that kind of resistance that then that when you cross that threshold, you know that your being and your doing are the same. Right? And make sure that you're not contrived in your actions, which is key, you know, when we're talking about Dao De.
Mm-hmm. Word.
It's nice. I can taste the rice. That's prominent, actually, for me.
Yeah, and that's only first brew, and so you can see it's still very much blooming. And
Yeah.
so I think this makes for great ritual, you know, because it blooms as it opens with each progressive steep. And I think if this were to be done in a thermos brew,
Oh.
maybe just like 3-4 leaves. That's it. And then
Mm-hmm.
let it steep overnight. And then when you open it and you get that first, you know, dragon's breath to
Wow.
come out,
That would be
really, really good chi. Yeah,
amazing.
good tea.
Yeah, so so, you know, in considering the first moon of any particular year, the auspices are generally the first moon of spring, the first moon of the year, is for try new things, just play. You know, like, and play is really is the direction for most of spring. But you can't really, so for the first for the first moon, you really can't expect too much. And it kind of makes you think, well, what good is it for? But like, that's from a productive standpoint. It's really just like feeling spring come up from within and watching how spring responds to Yang's first kind of wiggle, right? So one of the ways I think is really helpful to understand this dialogue.
Hold on. Did you just say Yang's first wiggle?
Yeah.
That's hella cute.
That's super wiggly.
Because you know why? There's a qigong for that.
For the wiggle? Ooh, okay, that's perfect.
So I had a Kung Fu uncle, Master Wong. I miss him. I love him. So Master Wong, you got to imagine, we're on the temple grounds. And this is probably 3 football fields of temple grounds.
Huge, yeah.
And Uncle Wong would be on the far end of the temple grounds. And he'd say, "Da Wei! Laya!" He yelled at me. He'd say, "Come!" And I better run, right? Because when the teacher calls you, run, right? And then so I'd run all the way to the teacher, and he'd be like, "What are you here for? I didn't call you." And I'm like, and I'd like go back and I'd practice, and I'd be practicing, and he'd go, "Da Wei!" And you know, I was very obedient. I'd run, and he called me fat, so that was his way of getting me to lose weight, just to get extra running in class. Anyway, when I got hip to his game, right, I would stop coming when he called. And he'd get mad, and he'd like, you know, posture and, you know, aggress, and we'd have our little confrontations, all in jest, of course. And I would taunt him with Yang's first wiggle. Okay.
Okay.
So what you do is, I'm going to do this seated. You want to sit at attention, right? Sit like you're going to stand up, kind of. You know, sit at the edge of your seat, right in between
Like you're
the poo-poo
gonna
and the
stand
pee-pee.
up. Okay, I like it, yeah.
Yeah, and then kind of let the arms hang and get a little front back shimmy action, a little speed it up so it's nice and loose. And then you're gonna and then so when he'd get mad in posture, that was my move. And then later I'd find out
It's a qigong.
that's a qigong called dancing like seaweed. And then they add like a little, you know, side to side with it. So for Yang's first wiggle, there's a qigong for that. I think this is how I'm going to approach my spring.
That I think that's good policy for at least a tiger moon for sure. For a monkey. As long as you have a safe place to hide.
Okay, so we've got the theme of the month. We have, before we get into any of our segments, do we want to recap anything? Like, people are
Well-
expecting some documents.
Oh,
right?
yeah. The one thing, one of the one one of the casualties of me doing too much too fast. Like I did like a couple other talks. Like I was just like on fire for like way too much. And so my my thought process, especially after this talk here, what I thought would be a cool compendium is to create like a PDF document, which is more like a handbook for the Dragon Year, which will be coming. I think it's not. There's a ton of information. It's just about compiling it and putting it in like a funny, like that.
Look what I found.
Yeah, that's the one from 2012, right?
That's 2012. So as soon as you said Cliff Notes, astrology, I don't even think you said Cliff Notes. I said Cliff Notes. As soon as you said astrology notes,
handbook,
my mind immediately went to Granddaddy Liu Ming, peace be upon you,
Yeah.
and how he would make these books every
Yeah, these booklets. And like I think what's cool about it is that it's then, especially for the Dragon Year, like I think drawing back on what the dragon is about, and potentially some of the because the images that I used in the talk were of the Qinglong,
Yes.
right, and like and some of the inspirations of the Azure Dragon from the standpoint of the Tongshu. I think that stuff could be really rich to be able to a good resource to draw on throughout the year. So I'm hoping to have that as soon as possible. And then it would be like a PDF that we can just share, or like make hard copies and leave in places, and just kind of a really cool way of us spreading the love. But yeah, I remember this. It was actually that was the first talk that I ever went to. Was the
Really?
2012. I remember exactly where I was sitting, where it was at. Yeah, it was like it was a obviously pretty pivotal moment. But yeah,
I miss Ming. Shout out Charles. Miss you, buddy.
Mr. Bellier from Boston. So I think a good platform for understanding what we're talking about is to back up and take a holistic view of the relationship between yin and yang throughout the year. Because right now we're transitioning. It's a very subtle transition, but it's a transition between old yin and new yin, right? Because there is a new yin. Old yin was winter, like has started to rise up into heaven. And as it goes, it leaves behind new yin. And new yin is often described as like the Jade Ladies, or features of inspiration like dakinis or even dakas that speak to and bring yang qi toward maturity, give guidance. Right? So that's where we are now, is this old yin has left, and new yin is kind of like dew on the lawn, right? This kind of nourishment that's left for yang qi in its raw form, still under the ground, like hasn't come up yet. So that's why in this particular first moon of the year, I mean, it's a lot of good ideas, but like, and some potent energy, and then you're in a fire tiger moon, which makes you predisposed to misconduct yourself, right? So.
And it almost feels like a double whammy, because right after Fire Tiger, we got Fire Rabbit.
Fire Rabbit, yeah.
And so there's like a lot of gochi, right?
Yeah, there's fire rabbits tend to believe what they're thinking and not really listen to what anybody else has to say, so there's still a kind of petulant teenager kind of feeling, right, that comes with these two moons. But the reality is, Yang's not even released into the environment yet. So watching, being able to regulate and your emotions are really what we're talking about, because like that kind of pent up anger, energy, need to make a change, need to make some kind of move. So at the talk, I was like, inhibition is over. Like, be ready. You know, we're doing this. Like, we need to break and what I now say, like, metabolize the morbidity of the last 4 years. This is a great opportunity to metabolize the morbidity of the last 4 years. So for some, that may come in the form of like burning down the forest, you know, to make a fresh start, to break away. These are all legitimate responses in a fire tiger moon. I'm not encouraging these things, you know, because if someone is genuinely put in a situation where they feel like they absolutely have no choice, I'll even bring up the self-immolation aspect. Well, a rabbit, who's a rabbit, is driven to such angst that that's available.
Well, rabbits, you know, to bring back Ming, he would talk about doing outreach to detentional facilities. And he talked about 1 year.
Yeah, I remember that.
Every single kid was in there for killing their parents.
Right.
And every single kid was a rabbit.
Yeah, it was like either tigers or rabbits that did that. Yeah. And the rabbit is like, and the rabbit is the one he made friends with. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like,
yeah. No dragons, he said.
It's not that they killed their parents. It's that I'm not going to let you touch me like that again.
Right.
I'm not going to let you do that to mom.
I've had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Ming would liken that to, yes, you're the rabbit. Yes, you're running and getting chased. But if you get back to a corner,
yeah,
you got sharp teeth and big hind feet, and you will kick the shit out of them.
Back legs. It's all about those back legs. Bam, bam. Yeah, like
thumper.
Yeah, and that's the chi of rabbit. That's because it's between tiger and dragon. You know, so in the right context or the wrong context, that rabbit's going to draw on both those kinds of energies in a very severe kind of way, right? So a lot's stirred up, you know, like but a lot of potential that's stirred up without a lot of longevity. Yeah. Right. It can't sustain this kind of outburst of energy. This transition that we're in is for new yin to partner with new yang, right? So that's where we're going, is this kind of inspired connection, potential for courtship starts coming out.
Hey.
Rabbit moon, it's the rabbit moon. Especially, there'll be a lot of babies, you know, conceived this moon.
Hey, so we're gonna see a lot of tiger babies.
It's good time for partnership. You know, it's good time for like exploring connections with people.
Hey, I like explore.
In a gentle way.
I like gentle. Hey. I need a sexy one. Man. I need a sexy sound effect.
So there's a way in which heaven and earth are, you know, basically they've reconnected. This is what spring's all about. But now they're kind of, and yang has done the wiggle, and yin has noticed and like sent some rain.
Oh yeah.
Right. And now you have this kind of like, well, let's go to the movies next week. You know, like there's this kind of, you're playing house, you know. It's not intended to be like particularly serious, right? It's supposed to be like playful. It's like 2-3-year-olds playing house, you know, like in, you know, making, you know, cleaning in little cozy kitchens or whatever, those little plastic things where like two kids like play.
Oh, that reminds me, why does Michael Jackson like 28-year-olds?
I have no idea.
There's 20 of them.
No, that's the wrong one.
Hey. Who's got it good? Who's got it bad? Who thinks they got it good, but it's really bad? Who's got it bad, but it's really good?
Yeah, I mean, like the interesting thing about that question is that it predisposes that there's some advantage to be had. Nope. You know, like it's basically everybody kind of holds steady and appreciate the routines that they have, and basically do this sort of play, like reaching out and then watching the omens as they return, right? So the only ones that, I mean, any of the chi characters that are like very, very forward going and can't wait. But given these two moons, and this moon in particular, that's a lot of us. I mean, like, Fire Tiger Chi can be very compelling, you know, and hate to break it to you, Rabbit Chi will be even more compelling, you know, because you sort of believe your own story. Like, Fire Tiger not listening to a story, it's just going on impulse, and impulse is pathogenic. I mean, it's basically related to your liver. Like, you should get treated because your condition, both your constitution natally and the habits that have affected your health coming in a package, all very available, you know, in the Tiger Moon, can access and release things, you know. That's the major benefit of a Tiger Moon, is being able to release your story, release it, and like particularly potent in a dragon year, and a wood dragon year at that. It's just kind of like grand reinvention, but not conceptual. It's like, I don't know, I just left, you know, and then I don't know where I'm going, you know. That kind of broad open road, you know, is what's available when you're talking about a Tiger Moon, and a Fire Tiger Moon at that, can potentially incredibly destructive, right? Mm-hmm. But there's so much potential that's released that you can't conceptually hold it, you know. Mm-hmm. You just sort of live through it, so not many of us have that fate right now. You know, very few of us have the need to go through such a trial, which is what that is a trial, necessary trial, but a trial nonetheless. But when you get to a fire rabbit, you've had some time to think about it, and like maybe you have a story and you really believe it, you know, like, and that could be maybe even worse in some cases than somebody who's just acting on impulse and then gets to pick up the pieces later. It's just a different set of conditions, but nonetheless, like, yeah, there is a kind of way in which we might back ourselves into the corner, or if we're too aggressive, because aggression at this time of year is like disastrous. I guess it kills our fertility. It kills our capacity to genuinely create something new, because we're acting on this potentially like a very strict and rigid narrative. So if we are in this impulsive, aggressive kind of approach to these moons, you know, you basically ruin your summer.
Wow.
And that's the big thing. You ruin your capacity to manifest because you've just blown out all your chi.
You know, that's such an interesting parallel to tea, because if this tea, for example, it's delicate, and if I were to blast it with boiling water,
exactly,
right off it would ruin all the progressive steeps. And so if I'm not careful with this early on, it's not going to taste good 10 steeps down the line. So if I waste my chi now in spring, summer's going to suck.
Yeah, everybody should listen to that. You know, like that's a very good analogy for trying for understanding the time that we're in, and that the options that come later, because spring itself, again, is just a promise. It's not a
You're so romantic.
That's actually means, but I agree. Like, it's a promise. You know, like spring is a promise of something fresh, a promise of something new. But like, it has no capacity for fulfillment, and that's the reason why trying to push. You know, because if you think that spring and summer are part of just one thing, in that summer is actually better than manifestation, and spring you got to push a little harder. That's actually what we think. You know, we think, oh, you know, the chi's coming, you know, it's going to be good. Summer's right around the corner, so I'm going to get a head start on it. Like, and that's what we think the year is all about. Spring is for getting a head start. If you really know what you want, you got to know what you want. You know, like all this certainty, all this aggression. But spring, in fact, is not for knowing anything. In fact, it's the opposite. You know, the less you know, like, actually, makes you more available to the capacities or the opportunities of the season. You know? So
G.I. Joe had it wrong? It's actually the less you know?
When have you ever known G.I. Joe to be right?
but Sergeant Slaughter, but
Yeah, it's question. It's more questions than answers that even if you have a deep inspiration, you should just be with the inspiration. Like keep it around if you want, but like chances are you might actually forget. And forgetting is not the problem, I'm looking forward to this one.
That is all sun process.
I like red tea, but my constitution is like that.
Well, I think you just figured out what kind of tea needs to go in that teapot of yours.
Ooh, what?
A red clay heart-shaped ding pot with red tea on the inside.
Wow.
Okay, so segue.
Well,
Go ahead.
I can't resist that. What's the segue? Oh, what would Ming do?
Yeah, what would Ming do?
He wouldn't be seeing 1 million clients. That's for sure.
Before you go on, Shannon, I gotta say, where's our camera? We're going on 20 episodes at this point. It feels like, yeah, it's a year and a half.
Yeah. Because in summer it'll be 2 years. Yeah.
I'm having a lot of fun right now.
No.
Are we tea drunk?
Yeah. Maybe not you, but I'm a lightweight, so. Cheap date.
Okay, so Ming would not be overbooking with clients right now.
No. I mean, I think that as someone is deep in ritual and the 5 practices of the Leo family, which is an excellent recording. I highly recommend. I'll send it to you. Highly recommend listening to go to DaLuenCircle.com and go to the class recordings. In there is a kind of obscure recording called The 5 Practices of the Leo Family. And it's fantastic. It is like the base of understanding everything he taught.
Dude.
So,
can I just the name, the 5 practices of the Leo family, as a father, I'm inspired to fucking come up with some practices for my family. Yeah. More than just like everybody eat together, right?
Loosely, I won't go into, because that would be sacrilegious. I'm just studying them now. But it's basically sitting, right?
Aww.
Yeah, like it's it's ritual, it's movement, it's dreaming, right? So there's like it's their basic elements that every human being does, right?
Are we doing them together?
No, actually. No. I mean, we are as a community.
Okay,
but
go to your room, do your ritual.
But yeah. I mean, so I guess some rituals are communal. This is the reason why I wasn't supposed to talk about it. But like digging a hole. But like, yeah, you're so right. That's what I got to put in that pot. Yes. Problem solved. So he was so, by his own admission, very drawn to the ritual aspect of the 5 practices. And I think that one of the things that he might be doing without telling anybody, if he was still around, are the kind of rituals that help regulate the chi of the whole community. Because at this particular point in time, given that we have these predispositions for misconduct, it's not like he's trying to save anybody from their misconduct. It's just that someone needs to be the focal point for how things naturally go, right? There has to be some place where that is supported, and I think that there are rituals that the Leo family practicing what's called the Xiandao, the way of the immortals. That tradition would naturally be doing for their community, for their parish, right? So I think that if we're to answer that question, that's the only thing I can think of that he
doing
needs
some meta work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's big in Buddhism. May all beings benefit
Huge.
from my practice.
Yeah, and in fact, like before the New Year's, the temples like in Alameda, a friend of mine was sending me these like beautiful pujas that they were doing, the practices that they were initiating. People were being there, and then again before Red Lantern. So that's the kind of thing. And all those traditions, I mean, it's very, we use these words like Buddhism and Taoism, but it's thousands of years older than that.
I wonder, because now that I'm sitting with this kind of idea of puja and dedicating merit, it almost seems like a Western equivalent of thoughts and prayers.
Well, if thoughts and prayers actually had anything behind it. Which
Like
we
good-
don't, it
good
doesn't.
deeds and
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, yeah, or like that there would be like thoughts and prayers as an extension of how a community operates and visits tangible influence in the life of the parish and beyond. Right? So if all those people that say thoughts and prayers also donated their time, energy, resources, then thoughts and prayers would actually have some momentum. Now it's just evidence of our hypocrisy, right? So that we could overeat, get fat, cause starvation, and send a check. and that we think that that's legit. Well, I sent a check. More mashed potatoes. Laughing about this is crazy. But yeah, that's what we do,
This episode needs to go public. Everything's going to paywall. I give you private link, but we're going public with this episode. This is a fun one. And this tea is really amazing.
It's very good. I like it a lot. I still am tripping on that idea. Thank you. So the one thing I wanted to complete was this thought process about the relationship of yin and yang throughout the year. Because grandma has gone to bed, right? And now you got these two little toddlers running around, flirting and growing up together. So it's like childhood sweetheart kind of thing. And of course, yang, when it comes and ascends to the throne, starts to implement change. Yin doesn't leave, is still part of the bringing potential into fruition. And one of those things is the birth of the daughter, right? In the summer.
That's what my daughter's coming.
So the birth of the daughter is the transition from yang to yin, right? Is the daughter in summer. That then the emperor drops everything and like dotes on and raises and then becomes the grandfather, and then yin takes over in the transition in the autumn.
I feel like you're giving me a personal reading right now.
Grandfather retires, or should retire.
Yeah,
should definitely retire and rest, while the matriarchs take over, and then they mature and grow and become the goddess through the winter, that then becomes the grandmother for the young boy, Yang. That then you go through this period of time where we're just exiting, where grandmother Yin, big Yin, is ascending and forgetful. And then there's this really tender, very immature place, premature place, where Yang is not strong and released, and Yin is checked out. And that's what we just left. And that's why everybody does nothing for 2 weeks, and they're supposed to just spend time with family, because it is this really deep, vulnerable place where yin is not providing support, so we all need to band together and like just be at home and like reacquaint with each other and give each other gifts for the new year, right? And reconnect. And now with new yin, then is left behind, makes friends, again, on and on and on. That's all we are, is this dance. So at this particular juncture, we're right before these two kids start being friends. I mean, they are connected, but we're going to go into the chi note of insect stir, which is this kind of vibration below the ground. So it's like the dragons are about to be released. So if this has been a really slow time, good, good. But like keep cultivating the gentleness in response to the season, because it's very important that we not, as you say, scald or ruin our potential, because potential will go into manifestation much easier if we do. Cheers. Red tea.
This is nice.
Red tea.
Yeah. Minimal processing, small batch, all done with the sun. Very, very special. Well, I think we're at a good lull. Maybe we can open the floor for questions.
Sure. Everybody had enough tea? No, me neither.
Do we have anything in the chat? Not yet. Okay. Well, I'm assuming Connie's going to ask about the hexagram.
Yeah, it was, I mean, 4. 4 is a good one. That's immaturity, which is just to recognize things are pretty half-baked, and it's got good guidance for the season, because there's nothing about that hexagram that says there's something wrong. It's just about being patient and allowing things to develop at their own pace and course. And then the other one would be Wu Wang, which is 25. That one is pretty classic in terms of navigating our expectations, which I think would be really good, particularly going into the next month. That's a good tandem.
I have a question. With this thought of energy that's abound now, and this kind of impulse for activity and quick to burnout, how would one deal with a manic outburst?
My first impulse is to say it's contextual, right? But generally speaking, if you have like a kind of safe container, let it play out. Suppression, very bad idea. This is not a time for suppression. If I've given that impression, that's not correct.
Let it run its course.
Yeah, it's more about sublimation. Sublimation is more of what is advised. During, particularly in the first moon, like instead of being at the guy who cut you off, go to martial arts class. To get that energy out, right? That's a sublimated process that's developing a sense of discipline and relatedness, where you can come into contact with whatever it is that you're feeling. As you're like punching pads, and you're like, okay, I think I got that out. And all right, I get some perspective. I get to broaden my perspective, because anger makes us go very narrow. Right? So if you have this kind of manic condition, man, it makes me think about some of the self-reflection process that I've been going through, where you get to go right in touch with like your actual condition, like why you make the assumptions you do, like why did I do too much, why was I frustrated when I couldn't connect with my writing is the central core of my practice, right? And it does not come easy. Like sometimes it's actually very difficult. But some of those things are actually related to the time itself. I mean, 9.9 times out of 10, it's related to the time itself. But even deeper than that is this kind of, if I feel like I'm trying to command something, that's not going to work. I can't command this, this practice. And I think some of the best things in life are the things we can't really command, but we have to be in partnership with. And so when we have these kinds of like really dramatic scenarios, not to say that, knowing people who work in the mental health field, when you're having a manic episode, there's no time for self-reflection. Yeah, you're just in the manic episode itself, right?
True that.
So I think in that case, it's about like having the right container for it to move. Because movement is actually, it is available. Movement is very much available. So this is like the horn, crocodile. This is the first lesson of Qinglong, which is the crocodile, the absolute stillness, and then takes out the zebra. It was there, and now it's gone. And so that's the kind of change that's available, especially in the first moon of the tiger. Now, if you're attached to stability, this is a very terrible time. Anybody, all the chi characters, the goats, even ox, like really kind of on their back foot, rats. But pretty much any of the chi characters, any of us coming out of winter, we would prefer some stability, right? But that's not necessarily how the chi is going to go. But it's flickering. So it's not like everything's burning down, of course stability still exists, is because even the instability is flicker. It's a flicker. It's not meant to be permanent. That's the nature of the chi, impermanence.
Can you speak more to sublimation and like what is it and what are methods behind it?
I'm going to repeat this question. So a comment came up, can we speak more on sublimation?
I mean, the topic of sublimation is cross-cultural, but it is essentially to say that if you've got a restless spirit, you should run, and like not just run indiscriminately, but maybe run on a track and maybe apply yourself to some training, some sort of discipline where that restlessness could actually be brought to a productive place, and then also becomes a mirror for the restlessness itself. I mean, you're going for ren, right? Going for ren, like going for ren, going for ren is the internal process of like the exploration of the artwork itself. Like, if you're just somebody who wants to throw paint across a room, then fortunately for you, like we are in a society where that's seen as art. But in a classical sense, if you wanted to throw paint across the room, it's like, well, you can throw it later. Let's try to use your fingers, and like create something, oh, look at that, you made something on the canvas, right? So it's a kind of an extreme lampoonish example, but I think this opportunity of sublimation exists in everything we do. I mean, trying to imagine like a 3-year-old toddler, like having some amusement that they want to do. It's like, okay, you can do that after you have dinner. This is sublimation. This is learning to cooperate and recognize your impulse in the context of the surroundings.
Well, I think I might have an example of sublimation
Please.
too, if I can contribute. And when I first was courting my wife, she has this huge Arabic family, and they all come together routinely, and they have like board game nights and things like that. And it's really fun. And one of the cousins in particular, he's very competitive. And in this particular game night, he was losing. And it triggered this angst, this anger and frustration, because he's very competitive. So he has all this chi. So to sublimate it, he just did 50 push-ups. And then when he was done, he expressed it. He's got a little bit of pump now. And he's like, okay, then he could think clearly and strategize. And so instead of like throwing the table over, kicking
Start pointing fingers.
It's like, I got this energy. Let me use it productively. And then now that it's expressed, I can think again with a clear head.
I was going to say that your courtship was a sublimation. Going to game night, that's a sublimation right there, buddy. So courtship, that is a form of sublimation. Absolutely. The courtship.
Look at you being romantic again.
Courtship involves sublimation. Well, courtship is everything. Everything that we're
We
courting.
have all this lust. What are we going to do with it?
Well, what was that thing that Ming said? The relationship of being and doing, right? Like the being is self-arising and doing is self-resolving. And so the process of, he was talking about soul Wong, but like even just in self-reflection or self-cultivation is to back up our doing to being as much as possible, right? To sort of strip back the layers of all the doing to getting back to seeing the transition between the being and the doing, from the self arising to self-resolving. Yeah, there's a step in there, or the semblance of a step. And so when we're talking about courtship, I mean, unless you're just sort of like a meathead and not really thinking about why you want to be with somebody, you're just trying to conquer something. That's not applicable here. That's not courtship. That's lust, right? Just saying. But sublimation and courtship is to be like, I'm down for this person, which means I got to get to know these people. Like I gotta like develop a relationship with somebody I would probably never talk to in life if it hadn't been for this woman that I absolutely love. Or it's all kinds of just expanding the net of relatedness itself. These are all the opportunities of spring. I mean, it's mind-boggling. If you really sit back and think about your life and all the lives that you touch, it's mind-boggling. You wouldn't move. You'd be frozen. Like if you really thought about all the lives you affect.
Wow, like a butterfly effect, huh?
Yeah, and that's, or in the case of Wood Dragon, you're the dragonfly effect.
I touch the most lives.
You do have an abacus here.
Do we have any more questions?
Touched another life.
Well, here's as good a spot as any, Seanan. I love you dearly. I'm excited to have another year of this project with you. Oh, it's right when I'm trying to say goodbye.
I'm not getting the being-doing distinction.
Oh, the being and doing. Well,
it's a cosmological basis of, in the Shen Dao, being, I would have to know more about where the fault of my explanation arrives, but like just to repeat it is to say that like there is intertwined, of course, if I'm sitting doing nothing, there's still a lot happening. Not even talking about my mind, I'm talking about like still digesting breakfast and making blood and all these things. So there is a kind of entanglement point, right, in the relationship between being and doing, I might say. But from a meditative, contemplative standpoint was the point that I was trying to make, is we're psychologically motivated, so probably say, what's your motives, right? And like unpack your motives, keep unpacking, keep unpacking. It's like one of those Matryoshka dolls, right? Just smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until like, what are we really talking about,
I got an answer for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the common mindset is I have to do something, and then I can have something, and then I can be something. I'm going to go to school so I can have an education, so I can be successful. I'm going to get married so I can have children, so I can be a family man.
Right.
I'm going to do something so I can have something, so I can be something. So oftentimes doing, it's like a means to an end.
Or precedes being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think the distinction is, instead of doing something to have and be something later, let me just be a family man now. Let me just be successful now and do the things that a family man would do, and then have the results of a family man.
Well, now what I contribute by saying like, this isn't a generative distinction, right? Like, and this backs up to a pretty foundational assumption in the cosmology, the Tongshu, and body of inspired feeling that Ming left behind, which is to say that like we are self-arising, and like and there isn't really anything to go after, actually. Like you don't have to do anything to get old. You don't have to make choices to digest. Like it just sort of, everything kind of takes care of itself. All the big things take care of themselves. Like everything you have to like work for and aspire to and all that stuff, actually very incidental to your life. Actually incredibly incidental. And it maybe even be the cornerstone of your fate, from a Ziwei Doshu perspective. Maybe the absolute cornerstone of your fate. Like you should really do this. It's still incidental. In terms of like the being aspect, because you are self-arising. And that's why, like last year, we were I was, offered these ideas about omen, the omen of your existence. But I digress. Was there any? Was there any feedback on that? Did we get that wrong?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
You were talking about how much you love me. Excellent tea. Y'all should buy some.
join the tea club this month. If you use promo code Prime Produce, you get 28% off. That's for everybody.
Wow, that came out smooth.
I'm just giving it away. Just give the tea away.
It'll come back.
Cool.
Another life affected.
Cut them.
That's gonna be a thing. I'm gonna